In professional wrestling, a finishing move is intended to be the final move of the match, and for a finisher to really stand out, it must have a certain degree of intensity and brutality. If used correctly, it can be a defining point for almost any wrestler. An eye-catching finisher is a key necessity in the current medium of pro wrestling, but over time it's become hard for a finisher to stand out, both visually and emotionally. So who has a standout finisher? Well, lucky for you, I'm DEONNA from German Suplex, and this is 10 most brutal looking finishers in wrestling today. Number 10. Brody King's Gonzo Bomb. Paul Orndorff, Jerry Lynn and FTR have all utilised the traditional piledriver to some capacity. Orndorff's was a standard variant, while Jerry Lynn opted for a GOTCH-STYLE variant a la Minoru Suzuki, and FTR, well, they added a lovely little spike on top of it, but all of these fare in comparison to Brody King's. When he hosts an opponent up, he traditionally places them over his shoulder, making it look as if he's going to actually perform a dominator. Instead, he drops them ever so slightly, spiking the poor adversary directly onto their heads in an incredibly sick visual. There is an immense amount of trust put in anyone when executing a piledriver as it is, but for Brody King there must be a layer above the norm. Almost anything can go wrong with one single hiccup, but Brody has managed to execute this match-ending manoeuvre to perfection every time he's done it. Number 9. DEONNA PURRAZZO's FUJIWARA armbar. When the Fujiwara armbar was created, it unknowingly created a paradigm shift in the world of rest holds. The move can be used as a rest hold as much as your average chin lock. If a wrestler is selling their arm during a match, the Fujiwara armbar is an easy go-to. It weakens the arm further, allowing the executor to hold the advantage. While Timothy Thatcher, the original Sin Cara and MJF have all used the manoeuvre to some degree, none have quite mastered it like DEONNA PURRAZZO. The virtuoso supplies so much torque to this move that the arm genuinely looks like it's about to snap. Even though she's careful, supplying the pressure in a wrong way could lead to the arm genuinely snapping. It's such an ambitious feature of a high-level wrestler to use such a basic hold, but this is an outstanding display of when that's done correctly. Number 8. The Young Bucks BTE Trigger. The Young Bucks in their current run is reminiscent of their pro wrestling guerrilla run in the early to mid 2010s. They are so over the top and cocky that instead of using the Meltzer driver, they opt to use this as their go-to finisher. Why? Because of course they would. Their entire style is to take the mick. The BTE trigger is almost an attempt to one-up Kota Ibushi. It's effectively a two-man version of the Golden Star's strikingly beautiful finish. They each grab an arm of their victim, thus preventing them from protecting their face in either way. It's the perfect setup, where Matt and Nick raise a knee, drilling both directly into the opponent's head. There is no coming back from that. It's so believable as a match ender. The Young Bucks don't just take a step forward when hitting this knee, they take a giant leap, driving both their knees forward with crazy impact into the side of their opponent's head. The lack of kayfabe protection here just gives you that sense of danger, and it's because of that danger that this is not only dangerous, but awesome. Number 7. Minoru Suzuki's GOTCH-STYLE piledriver. We've already mentioned piledrivers on this list once, and we've already given that little nod to Minoru Suzuki, but here he is with his own entry on this list. The standard piledriver can be somewhat of a basic manoeuvre, but when you're being dropped on your skull by Minoru Suzuki, however, that's an entirely different vibe and aura to the already deadly move. The king will typically hold his opponent at the critically 90-degree angle for a number of seconds, causing every ounce of blood to rush to their opponent's head. It's a simple yet effortless perfect detail that furthers the deadly nature of this head bump. Number 6. Kenny Omega's V-Trigger. Kenny Omega's V-Trigger isn't just another sharp knee strike to nail the opponent in the side of the head. It's so much more than that. It's effectively used to start mocking the opponent. The way he sets this up doesn't necessarily hit the ropes, run at full speed, then pauses for a brief moment, and then he strikes, perfectly nailing the person directly in the side of the head. It's all of these tiny little details that make Kenny Omega an absolute masterpiece at what he does, and this isn't even his final place on this list. Number 5. Kenny Omega's One-Winged Angel. I told you it wasn't Kenny Omega's only appearance on this list. Kenny Omega has an even greater finisher than the V-Trigger, and it might be one of the best finishers of all time. Kenny Omega has been using the One-Winged Angel for his go-to finisher, dating back many years to his New Japan run, but even today it still blows your mind every time you witness the magical beauty of Omega's electric chair driver. When he hoists an opponent on top of his shoulders, there's a 99.9% chance that the match is ending. It's ubiquitous, provided you don't find a counter pre-drop. It is literally the most protected finisher of all time in professional wrestling. Once Omega sits down, the match will end. No questions asked. The last man to evade a loss after having their neck compressed by the One-Winged Angel was Kota Ibushi. That occurred during their seminal DDT clash on the 18th of August 2012. It's therefore been around 9.5 years since anybody kicked out of this move, but nothing is ever detracted from a Kenny Omega victory because of it. Omega always makes the One-Winged Angel work perfectly. Number 4. Jon Moxley's Paradigm Shift. Jon Moxley's Paradigm Shift is a murder variant of a DDT. In WWE, the Dirty Deeds was fine. His quick jab kick to the ribs was the right setup for the snap double arm DDT. While holding his opponents for a few seconds, staring at the crowd as you just stand there and wait for the right time to hit it may not be the best. So, in his move to AEW, when he snaps that DDT in, he not only hits it quicker, but he hits it more viciously, lifting the opponent up in the air and dropping their head directly down onto the mat. Each paradigm shift is different, and everyone takes a bump a different way, but each one is beautifully brutal. Jon Moxley is dubbed the Death Rider, and for a very good reason. You believe he could genuinely cause some harm, but hopefully not in death in real life. But he executes this in the world of kayfabe perfectly. Number 3. Cedric Alexander's Lumbar Check. The term backbreaker in wrestling is largely a lie. You're never actually going to break someone's back by having a knee drilled into it, unless you're Bane taking on Batman, of course. But this simply is a beautiful phrase used by the announcers to emphasize the potential danger in taking such a move. The lumbar check, however, could believably break a back or two. Cedric Alexander, the inventor of the move, rose to prominence on the independent circuit through his use of it. It blew your mind the first time you saw it, being lifted in the back suplex position and proceeding to drop rapidly spine first onto two knees extremely stiffly. The lumbar check is undoubtedly a terrifying finisher that could finish off any opponent at a sudden flick of a switch. Number 2. Will Ospreay's Hidden Blade. A divisive figure as they get, Will Ospreay's in-ring arsenal is sublime nonetheless. Even beyond his flips and dives, the Stormbreaker is an insane display of professional wrestling in and of itself. While old Essex Destroyer front flip DDT, while eloquently as insane, is a tad more brutal. However, this move is definitely Will Ospreay's most brutal maneuver. This vicious strike to the back of the skull is so vicious the opponent often doesn't even sell it as they just hit the mat flat out cold. Number 1. Naito's Destino. Sting made the reverse DDT an iconic finisher, using the Scorpion Death Drop throughout his 40-year plus career, and it was a certified crowd popper. The only issue that it's tad basic for a modern grappler to use believably. There's a reason that there's no Hulk Hogan wannabe leg dropping people out there using that as their finisher, as it just no longer holds the gravitas as the world of wrestling has moved on slightly this time. So unless you can find a different variation of that leg drop, then you're probably not going to use it, and the same applies to the reverse DDT, as Naito has found a perfect way to modernise this move to make it look absolutely devastating. Naito essentially performs a backflip over the opponent and drills their head down into the mat. It's incredible to watch all of the New Japan wrestlers take this bump, and a lot of them will gladly take this as a neck bump. And that's the list. Did I miss any off? Have you got a favourite brutal finishing move that you want people to know about? Leave it in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed the video. Now go and check out another one and give us a subscribe, or even just like this video. I mean, it costs you nothing and it helps us out. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.